Elena Hayes had always believed love was a simple thing, until life proved her wrong. From the outside, her life seemed idyllic. She was engaged to Mark Caldwell, a man with a kind heart, steady hands, and a dependable soul. They had been together since college. 8 years of memories, plans, and promises. Mark was the kind of man who brought her coffee every morning, who remembered the names of her co-workers, and who once drove 6 hours to fix her car when it broke down during a weekend trip. But then there was Julian. Julian Bennett wasn't safe or predictable. He was fire where Mark was calm. A world-traveling photographer with a crooked smile and reckless charm. Julian had reappeared in her life during an art exhibit downtown, 3 months before her wedding. One minute she was admiring a black and white photo of a child playing in rainwater, and the next, she was locking eyes with a man she hadn't seen since their whirlwind summer 5 years ago. That summer had been reckless and unforgettable. She and Julian had met in Paris, both young, broke, and searching for something intangible. Their romance had burned fast and bright, only to fizzle when reality caught up. Julian had left without warning, chasing an assignment in South Africa, and Elena had returned home heartbroken, and eventually into Mark's comforting arms. Now Julian stood before her again, older, more grounded, but still possessing that undeniable spark. They talked. Just coffee, she told herself. Just memories. But the coffee turned into long walks, and the walks turned into confessions. And then one night, she made the mistake she couldn't take back. She slept with Julian. Guilt wrapped around her like a second skin. Every time Mark smiled at her, every time he said he couldn't wait to call her his wife, her chest tightened. Yet she kept seeing Julian. Not out of lust, but out of love. A dangerous, impossible love that made her feel alive in ways she had long buried. She loved both men. Mark made her feel safe. Julian made her feel seen. Mark offered a life of comfort and certainty. Julian offered passion and unpredictability. The choice gnawed at her. She would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how she'd become the woman who betrayed the man who had never hurt her. And still, she couldn't bring herself to stop. Julian told her to choose. "Run away with me," he said one evening as they sat on the hood of his car beneath a sky full of stars. "We'll figure it out. We always do." She wanted to believe him. But we had never figured anything out before. The wedding drew closer. Her dress was fitted, the venue decorated, her vows written, but her heart divided. On the morning of her wedding, Elena stood in front of the mirror, veil in hand, eyes hollow. Her phone buzzed Julian's name. No message, just his name. Waiting. Her mother entered the room. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Elena swallowed hard. "I'm not sure," but she went through with it. She married Mark. Julian didn't show up at the ceremony, didn't interrupt like in the movies. He disappeared again, the way he always had, without ceremony, but leaving a permanent ache behind. Years passed. Mark remained the steady man she married. They had children, built a home, hosted dinner parties. But Elena never told him, never confessed the truth of those final months before the wedding. And late at night, when Mark was asleep beside her and the world outside was quiet, she sometimes scrolled through Julian's old photos online, wondering if he ever thought of her, wondering what might have been. She had loved 2 men, but she only married one, and lived with that choice every single day. Elena thought time would numb it, that the weight of her decision, the ache of a love lost, would dull with routine. School lunches, work meetings, Christmas photos, anniversaries. But it didn't fade. It settled deeper, like sediment in a still lake. She never spoke Julian's name aloud again, not even in private. It felt like an unforgivable betrayal to the man who had never stopped loving her, the man she married. Mark was a good husband, gentle, thoughtful, the kind of father who showed up to every recital and built tree houses by hand. If he noticed the distance in her eyes sometimes, he never said so. He simply held her hand when she seemed quiet and kissed her temple like nothing was wrong. But Elena knew, and that knowing, that haunting what if, lingered. One day, nearly 6 years into her marriage, while dropping off a client portfolio at a downtown studio, she turned a corner and stopped cold. There he was, Julian. He was thinner now, older, too, though still effortlessly handsome in that same frustrating, disheveled way. He stood behind a camera, coaching a model with that familiar focus, laughter in his voice. She watched him for a second too long, and he turned. Their eyes met. He didn't smile, didn't flinch. He just stared, as if part of him had been expecting this for years. She walked away before he could follow. That night, Elena lay beside Mark in silence. She stared at the ceiling again, as if it might offer answers this time. Mark shifted beside her. "You've been quiet all day," he murmured. She hesitated. "I saw someone. From a long time ago." Mark didn't ask who. He simply said old feelings, and when she didn't reply, he added gently, "I've known, you know, for a while." She turned toward him slowly. "Known what?" "That part of you is somewhere else. Or with someone else. I didn't know his name, but I knew he existed." Tears sprang to her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you." "You didn't," he said. "Not really. You gave me everything you could. I just don't think your whole heart was ever mine." And for the first time, she cried not out of guilt, but out of grief. Grief for the version of herself she had buried, for the love she let go, and for the quiet, kind man who had always known she wasn't completely his, but loved her anyway. In the weeks that followed, they tried to mend the quiet spaces between them. They spent more time together, took walks, reminisced. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a grand fix, but it was honest and strangely peaceful. One evening, as they watched their daughter ride her bike in the driveway, Mark said, "If you ever need to find out what's still out there for you, I won't stop you." Elena didn't respond, because she already knew love isn't always about choosing the one who makes your heart race. Sometimes it's about choosing the one who stays. Still, deep in the quiet parts of her soul, Julian's name never fully faded. She loved two men. She only married one. But in the end, it was herself she had to live with, and the weight of every unspoken goodbye. The years kept moving as they always do. Elena didn't leave. She didn't run after Julian or chase some long-lost version of her heart. Instead, she stayed, rooted in the life she chose, in the family she built, in the love that, while quiet and imperfect, had always been real. But something changed after that encounter. Not on the outside. Her daily life still hummed with schedules, carpools, and dinner conversations. But deep inside her, a shift occurred. A reckoning. She began asking herself hard questions. Who had she become? Who had she sacrificed? And was there a way to forgive herself for all the things she could never fix? One morning, while folding laundry, she found a photo tucked between the pages of an old book in her closet. Paris, 2014. She and Julian, sun-drenched and laughing, seated on the edge of the Seine. He had taken the picture using a timer, pulling her close in the final second. The joy on her face felt foreign now, almost like looking at a stranger. She stared at it for a long time, then placed it in an envelope and tucked it into the back of her drawer. She wouldn't throw it away. She couldn't. That memory was hers too, even if it didn't belong to the life she now lived. Months passed. The ache lessened, not because the love disappeared, but because she stopped pretending it had ever been simple. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed and the house was still, Mark sat beside her on the porch swing, their hands loosely intertwined. "Do you ever wonder?" she asked softly. He looked at her, eyes tired but warm. "Of course. Don't you?" "All the time." He nodded. "But wondering isn't regret. It just means we're human." She let the silence settle between them, the crickets chirping somewhere in the grass. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice thick. Mark squeezed her hand. "I forgave you long before you ever asked." And somehow, that was what broke her. Because despite everything, the betrayal, the silence, the half-hidden sadness, he still chose her. Not because she was perfect, but because he loved her even in her uncertainty. The years move again. Their daughter started high school. Their son joined a soccer team. They took a trip to the coast, just the four of them, and Elena found herself smiling, not just for photos, but genuinely. She never saw Julian again. But sometimes, when she passed through downtown and glimpsed a gallery window or heard the click of a shutter, she would pause and remember she had loved two men, one who taught her how wildly her heart could beat, and one who showed her that it could still keep going, even after breaking. And in the quiet stillness of her life now, not full of fireworks, but steady like a heartbeat, Elena finally began to love herself too, not for who she had been, but for the woman she was still becoming.